from the Key Radio Studios in Provo, Utah, and broadcasting live throughout Utah County, Sevier County, South Central Utah, Carbon County, and the Uinta Basin. It's your good friends Mike and Heather in the morning.
Thanks, Mike.
I'm ready to be here.
This is awesome. Hey, good morning. It is it's going to be a hot one. Ooh, a scorcher, huh?
Yes, 100 degrees, yeah.
Oh,
in
yeah.
Utah Valley here, anyway.
That's right. Well, you know what? 100, that's like, ooh, it's a nice round number. And, you know, you go to the top. I don't know. I'm trying to be positive.
Yeah, we're going to put a supercharger on the air conditioner today.
That's right. In the studio, we have, of course, Grant Burkhalter, and he is pressing all the buttons, and he's sliding up and down faders and all sorts of things. And we have, I know it's not Tuesday, it's Monday, but Mike Cunningham is here. So thanks for switching your schedule up a little bit.
It's my pleasure.
Agreeing to come in.
That's great.
Oh, man, yeah. You're always so smiley and happy. It's so nice to have him here. You're a Monday guy. You're a morning guy, aren't you?
No.
No.
I am caffeinated.
Okay, well, I'm glad that you're caffeinated. Because we don't want you to be sad and tired, so that's good. Big news. Joey Chestnut.
Oh my gosh.
Won.
The victor. Yep.
He's the victor of the whatever annual Coney Island Eat All the Hot Dogs food competition, and man, that was disgusting.
How is that possible?
I don't know. It just it
and
befuddles
Mickey
me.
Sudo.
Oh yes.
I mean, she's a little thing.
And didn't she break the women's record or something like that? It was something.
I don't know how
crazy.
they do it. But I'm glad they do it, and I can just marvel at the whole thing.
Hey,
Hot dog eating.
the moral of the story is everyone's good at something.
Yeah.
You got to find that thing.
And you might think eating, you'd be really good at eating, and you think that's not important. But look there's major league eating competitions. Come on, my friend.
That's how you know you live in America.
That's right. If you're
Dadgummit.
good at crocheting, you crochet. If you are, just do it. Just do it. It's great. It's great. Oh, man. So anyway, this is a funny story because it happened to me yesterday. I decided to go to a little thrift shop. I like thrift shops. I really do. And I found this mirror. We had broken our mirror. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, nothing happened.
No.
It was hanging there. And
then it wasn't.
Nobody's near the thing, and all of a sudden it just falls off the wall and lands on the floor, cracks.
It was the craziest thing. So now I'm without a mirror in this, and I'm like, oh, that's too bad. And we got, it's like when you have it there, you just depend on it. So anyway, I go to this little thrift shop and I look and there's this mirror, and it's prettier than the one we had before.
Even better.
And it's cheaper than the one before.
Hey,
I mean,
better.
now I'm like, yeah, well, exactly right. And so I buy it. I'm so happy, and it's really big, and I'm bringing it to the car, and there's this guy who goes past, and he looks and he says, "Hey, that's a nice looking mirror." And I said, "Thank you." And then I stopped, and I'm like, "Wait a minute, did he just do what I think he just did?"
It's a mirror. He's seen himself.
Yeah. Funny guy.
Funny guy.
I don't know what his name is, but thanks for brightening my day.
It's
really
true.
funny.
If you put a mirror out, people just can't help themselves.
I know.
I mean, and of course, the problem when you don't have a mirror, when your mirror's broken, you can have all that excuses like, "What? Did you lose your mirror?" Yes, I got dressed in the dark today.
Right.
You get a
Well,
free
it doesn't
pass.
stop me. It doesn't stop me, but I do look to see if I have spinach in my teeth or something.
Right.
Sometimes. Anyway, It was funny. People are funny. I appreciate that. So yeah. Anything else, Mike?
No, I was just looking at the Fox News article, outrage after California bans singing in churches amid coronavirus pandemic. Is this real? Can they really do that? No, I'm serious.
The secret police just pop up from the pews. Stop singing!
Well, I mean,
Stop this singing right now!
and maybe you can go with, okay, they can tell us how many people to have in a church. Maybe. But telling us what to do in church? I mean, this is way overreaching.
We live in crazy times.
We do. Yeah.
Well, in California, while we're on California subject,
California.
I mean, they banned fireworks, right? And then you look at somebody did a panoramic of this entire area, and there were more fireworks in that area than I've ever seen. It was amazing. It was amazing. So, human beings, we are going to bristle at people telling us what to do.
And again, I bet the singing was amazing yesterday because if you want Americans not to do something, tell them.
Yeah.
If you want to do something, tell them, you can't do this. And so maybe revival will break out in California.
Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be great? Did you see Utah Valley fireworks?
Crazy.
incredible.
Yeah,
How do you explain to people who don't live in Utah what we just experienced?
So I took a picture of some of the fireworks in my neighborhood, and my Facebook post was, my neighborhood could single-handedly win the War of 1812.
we had the coolest perspective. We were kind of up on the hillside in, north.
Like Orem area.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And looking over the entire valley from all the way, Saratoga Springs up into Lehigh and all the way down through Provo.
Yeah.
Just the number of civilian
That's right.
fireworks going off was amazing.
Yeah. It was
the only thing that made me sad was I was out and about, and I was watching the sheriffs just, like the fire and the police just scurrying all over all over. And then I do my morning walks with my son. We walk the dog, and it's like I'm watching like city people cleaning up all the firework debris the next morning. But everyone had a good time.
And they did. What I thought was funny is like, and I don't know if it's funny, people are probably, but you looked out over and there's this haze in the morning of the 5th, and you're just like, what just happened?
It looks
here?
like we've all had a battle, right?
I know, right? But it was fun. And it's good to celebrate. I think it's very good for us to celebrate. We do live in a fabulous country. Is it perfect?
No.
Well, no. But we are so blessed. And even today, and I'll say this many times, you'll hear me, but we have the freedom and liberty to talk about the Lord here.
Right.
We do. And that's many people can't do this.
Right. In some countries, like this would be underground in a secret location, hoping one traces us here.
Right. And that's not just for like radio. So friend, if you're, think about this, you have a great opportunity. You have great platforms that we are afforded here in America that you can proclaim Christ. It's a good thing. Do it. Take advantage of it, because this is a wonderful time in history and people need to know Jesus Christ.
It's the cure for everything.
Yeah.
I mean, all the world's problems, Jesus is the answer.
He's the answer. In fact, that's what we're going to be talking about today. And let me just set this down for you here. The reason why we're talking about this is if you look at the news, if you talk to people in your circle of influence, you're going to see that there are varying degrees of fear going on. Okay, and I don't want to offend people, and don't hear me say you should not be concerned for anything. Okay, but we need to talk about fear, because to me it just looks like, you look at media right now and it's selling fear. Like fear sells right now, and they're getting ratings because they're feeding our fears. Politicians are capitalizing on our fear. Vote for me and because it's a scary place out here and I will make it better. You know it. You've heard it. I mean, we've all heard it.
Every election ever.
Oh, and we just eat it up and we eat it up and we eat it up. And it gets very dangerous because, number one, a lot of the things that we're afraid of never come to fruition. And then we forget that God is in control. Right. And when we start fearing, I think it's sinful to fear in that way. But we need to go a little bit deeper, because you probably heard me just say that, and then you're like, wait a minute, there's a good, healthy fear, and blah, blah, blah. Well, of course, you're right, and that's why we want to talk about it today. So, and I thought it would be neat just to, this week, how do you counter that? Well, we thought maybe going through Proverbs 3:5-12 would be a good place for us to just kind of springboard off. Of course, this you're going to be like, what is that? Let me just read it to you as an overview here. And it's, trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths. Be not wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and turn away from evil. It will be healing to your flesh and refreshment to your bones. Honor the Lord with your wealth and with the first fruits of all your produce. Then your barns will be filled with plenty, and your vats will be bursting with wine. My son, do not despise the Lord's discipline or be weary of his reproof, for the Lord reproves him whom he loves, as a father the son in whom he delights. And you're like, I don't really see that as a fear passage, but I think you're going to see this as we go through this week, and you're going to go, oh, because it's not about do not, it's about do, right? And so that's the angle that we're taking. And plus, dear friend, what a great passage to memorize.
Right.
Okay. Mike, let's just start off. How do you want to begin this conversation? We're going to be focusing on really just Proverbs 3:5, which is trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding.
Wow, that's just one verse right there. Boom. It's so hard because again, we see around, we experience things, and I think most of the time, whenever you kind of break down, okay, where did we go wrong? Where did my life get a little bit wonky? Where did I get really afraid? Where did I start making poor decisions? It was the moment you took your eyes off of where they're supposed to be. Yeah. Because I think that, and it's natural. I mean, it's kind of like how many times is it like you're supposed to stay on the path, blinky lights, it's whatever, things, shiny things, we just kind of get, it takes faith, it takes trust, and it takes faith to stay on that path. And God is, he's there and he's faithful. Tim Keller quote, "The peace of God is not the absence of fear. It is in fact it is his presence." Peace comes from our presence with God, that when we're, that we're not going to be, if you're waiting in your life for there to be a complete absence of fear, a complete absence of problems or challenges or things to be, you're going to be kind of disappointed in your life.
Well, let's talk about the fear part here, Mike, because God has created us, and there's emotions. We're emotional creatures.
We are.
Okay, and so fear, that's an emotion, and a lot of times, I don't know. If you've driven on I-15, you probably have fear all the time, right? So, is fear itself sinful, or is that something that God has given us for a purpose?
I always given it to us so that we can know when we're straying and when we're, it's for our protection. Okay. Just like, I'm not going to go touch a stove. I'm not going to, run headlong into a carnivorous animal. That's God has given us an intellect enough of one to know how to protect ourselves and how to, but most of it, if you look at most of it, it's to direct us back to Him.
Okay.
Because I think that's where you have issues, because when we rely on our own strength, when we rely on our own perspective, our own capabilities, talents, etc., it doesn't always end well. And what happens if you believe in spiritual warfare, and I do, sometimes we're afforded a few small wins just to get enough of too much confidence, so that we go poof, it can just kind of blow up in front of us. It's having a healthy fear. It says fear of the Lord. It doesn't mean to be constantly afraid of Him. It means to respect Him, to put Him in our lives where He's supposed to be. Sure. Which is front and center, not supplementary, not to the side, not on an occasion. He is to be the center of our life at all times. And when we stay on that, we find ourselves functioning at a very high level, even amid difficult circumstances. But when we take our eyes off of Him, it gets scary real fast. Fear
it can be used, I think, as a course correction, though, too. Oh, yeah. Like, I don't know. I take the example of driving down I-15 again. You see somebody in front of you and they're doing something. You make a correction. But there's an action that happens. And when you fear the Lord, I think there is an element of actual fear. When you really know who God is, and we don't really know. Can we really, really know? And He tells us about Himself. Praise the Lord that He has revealed Himself. But the stuff that He's showing us too, like His wrath for sin, ooh, good gravy.
Yeah, I think in Matthew 10:28, do not be afraid of those who kill the body but cannot kill the soul. Rather, be afraid of the one who can destroy both soul and body in hell.
Yeah. And then when you think about like criminals, right? We have laws in place, and then there is a payment for the laws that you break. And like the capital punishment, whether you like it or don't like it, that's beside the point here. The point is, if you know that you're going to if you're going to die for killing another person, you're probably not going to kill another person, because you know that, and you fear that, right? And I think that's a healthy thing. So fear in and of itself, I don't think is a bad thing. I think what makes it bad is when we put our fears above who God is.
Right. Fear as a deterrent can be very powerful because, again, it keeps us on the straight and narrow. It keeps us on our path. But when fear, I actually kind of put trust in there too. When you trust your instincts, lead not on your own understanding. When you trust your own understanding more than you trust God's perspective and His sovereignty, that's where things get scary, because that's when you don't want to ever leave your house or do anything, because you're so focused on the here and now, the secular, that you don't realize that the creator of all things, this creator and sustainer of all things, is leading you in this direction. He's going to take care of you. He is going to protect you. He's going to grow you. And when you lean too much on your own understanding, then what happens? There's a kind of fear that comes from that, because now you are relying on yourself, and you realize you have that awakening moment. You're going, I'm not in control of anything. But if it stops right there, you have a very fearful individual who doesn't ever achieve their potential, because they're looking at themselves.
Sure.
But when they're looking at God, then all of a sudden you're able to overcome that.
Yeah. Wow. It sounds like, when you're overcoming, there's a courage element there.
Right.
But I think when you're focusing on yourself and your circumstances, and then you are fearful and you don't go to the Lord, that is idolatry, really, where you're putting your own perspective, your own understanding over the Lord's. But this also shows, I think, that we are not trusting the Lord like we should. That, it's just amazing to me, and I'm speaking for myself here,
right.
Okay? So I don't want to point fingers, because I'm terrible. But it's amazing to me that I can trust the Lord with my entire eternity, all of eternity, and putting my full trust in Jesus Christ, who came to earth, and he lived a life, a perfect, sinless life that I could never live. And then he died on the cross for my sins and for yours, right? And then he rose from the dead. He defeated the power of death and sin. And I just trust in his power, his work, not anything that I do, so that I don't have to endure the wrath of God. The wrath of God was poured on him. So I trust that. I can trust all of my eternity based on the works of Jesus Christ. But then when I have a problem, right here in the temporal, I'm like, oh Lord, I don't know if you can do this for me. I mean, it's just like, that's the way it's sad, but that's our human condition. And how do you get over that?
Well, it says here, do not be wise in your own eyes. That we need to be, again, submitting to Him in His authority. And I think that's, again, I keep coming back to that, because, otherwise I'm on the radio right now. I don't want to tell something wrong, because, that really is, if they hear anything from me today, trust in the Lord with all of your, lean not on your own understanding, because we have a lot of things that we try to do in our own world to give ourselves victory over fear and things of those things of nature. And sometimes in our obedience to God, He helps us get past that in our life. But I think that, again, most of this is rooted in our trusting of ourselves. We live in an idolatrous country and culture. We live in an individual kind of setting.
Right.
We are about we're bootstrap people. We are about owning it and having our own power and strength and being able. Those are the kinds of things that we value. Grace is not something that we always value in our culture. That we don't understand. It's unmerited. You're not allowed to have unmerited favor. You're not allowed to have something bigger than you leading you on. This is about my individuality and my strength and my perspective. And so and that's why we're seeing so many people flame out. And that's why I'm seeing so many people. That's why I counsel so many people on these kinds of things, because it's like day after day after, I'm not enough.
Right.
I'm not enough. Well, today, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about how you can live in confidence. You don't have to live in fear. God loves you. God's got a wonderful plan for your life. God doesn't want you to be miserable. And God, if you will put your eyes on Him, if you will follow Him, He will give you a life that you don't deserve, but you will love.
It's funny you said that that if you are not enough, right? Right now, there's just seems to be this weird little tweet going on where it says, you are enough. And that worries me so much because, I mean, Christian, we're talking, to you, but we're talking to everybody. We are not enough. And Christians, I think, understand that. And that's the reason why we can live fear-free, if you will, because we know that we are not enough. None of us are enough. We need Jesus. We are people, very needy people. And so when you're looking out in the world and you think, how can I influence my world so that the things aren't going to blow up? It's so crazy right now. I want to make a change. I want to make a difference, but I'm not enough.
Yeah.
And you're right. You're not enough. But Jesus, like we said right in the beginning here, Jesus is enough. Jesus is the one who can empower us, and he can use us to his glory and to his purposes.
Well, sometimes we get in our culture, we get kind of self-worth, self-esteem kind of intertwined. In terms of self-worth, we are made in God's image. We are fearfully and wonderfully made. We are loved by the creator of the universe. So in that sense, we're enough. Mm-hmm. Like we try to move it over into the self-esteem where it's like I do these good things and I feel good about myself based upon my own performance. Now, from this standpoint, you're not enough because you can't earn it. You can't, there's nothing we can do in our efforts to do those things. But, I also don't want to make sure when I see that tweet, I think of people who just feel like they're worthless and useless, and they've got to somehow white knuckle into some kind of value. And I think that to those people, I would turn them to God's, to the worth that they have being a creator. Now we have a sinful nature, I get that, but at the same time, and it only takes God to fix that. But the thing is that to those people, come to the Lord because He loves you. You are intrinsic. You are valuable to Him. That we are all loved and made by God, and there's no one that cannot get new life at the foot of the cross.
This is so good, and I hope, my friend, that you're getting some courage and that you're being encouraged this morning. We're going to have a little Bible trivia right now. It looks, I know, Mike's Bible
trivia. This is a really short question
from the complete book of Bible trivia.
The complete book of Bible trivia. J. Stephen Lang.
Love J. Stephen Lang.
Who was the last king of Israel?
Ooh, good one.
Okay, is this a trick question?
No.
Last king of Israel, Judah, not Judah.
No.
Okay.
Who was the last king of Israel?
Okay. And if you know the answer, you can give us a text at 855-539-4583. That's 855-KEY-GLUE. Or, my friend, you can also comment in the comments section on Facebook Live. You are listening to Key Radio. Mike and Heather in the morning, Grant at the controls, and we have in the studio with us our good friend and yours, Pastor Mike Cunningham. Figure out the answer to that Bible trivia question, and if you have a question, let us know what it is, and we'll try to address it.
Follow up, Janet, with Life Unlocked, Truth Unleashed. Yes. Key Radio, Mike and Heather in the morning. Mike Cunningham in the guest seat.
Woohoo!
Taking Steve Pearson's place.
Yeah.
Good morning, Steve. He's actually tweeting with us online.
Yeah, he is. And
major shout out. I love Steve.
Oh, he's a good guy. Well, here's the thing. He had a very exciting thing happen in his family.
He
his
did.
daughter got married, and so he was out and doing stuff. I didn't expect him back. I guess that's the thing. So, because I had it on my calendar that Steve wasn't going to be back until next week. And then all of a sudden he's like, oh, so I made you. And I called you and like, I need somebody to help. And then they're like, yeah, I'll just reschedule everything. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And then, yeah. So anyway.
Well, thanks, Steve.
Steve, thank you. This is good. Okay, Angela, thank you for listening. We were talking about how we are not enough, right? And that we need to trust in the Lord. And we are not enough. So she goes, here's more proof that I cannot do it on my own. And she said she put her shirt on inside out this morning. But she said, by God's grace, she didn't leave home before noticing that. It was awesome.
We've all done that, right?
Yeah,
As I quickly look to see if my shirt's on inside.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, oh man, been there, done that. So funny. But I mean, those are funny things that we can laugh about, and we should, because if we're taking ourselves too seriously, I mean, come on. I mean, there's some good material there, right?
Yeah.
But I think we need to talk about Okay, it says to trust in the Lord with all our heart, right? And we are also told, though, that our heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? That's Jeremiah 17:9. What exactly are we talking about? Is this trusting in the Lord with all our heart? Is this a feeling or is this an issue? What is this?
Well, our whole being.
Okay.
I mean, we basically, again, when you're going through your life and you have a gospel, that's a good, basically fancy word saying good news or focused on God perspective. You'll hear Christians talk about, I'm living in a Christian worldview, a gospel-centered perspective. Those are just ways of saying that, like, I'm rooting my life, my values, my worth, my purpose in life in Scripture and in the Lord, and what God is how He's on my path there. And when people do that, they're able to navigate a very difficult culture. They're able to navigate massive changes. Again, one of the reasons I'm a huge C.S. Lewis geek is because this is a man who was born into the end of Victorian England. Like, he was born into, like, England at its peak, at its wealthiest, at its most stable, when they owned, like, most of the planet. And his lifetime was being an apologist during world wars and just terrible times and people turning away from the church and whatever. And I think that's why people like those people inspire me, is because, when you can give faith and you can point to something bigger when things are not ideal, when we're not able to be in a position of comfort, we're in a position of concern or of challenge, when you can persevere, that you see those people when they root themselves in the Lord, when their confidence is something higher than themselves, they are able to persevere and thrive and give hope to others amid even difficult circumstances.
It's just reminding me of 1 Peter here when we're talking too, because in 1 Peter it says, 1:6, in this you rejoice, though now for a little while, if necessary, you have been grieved by various trials. And then it says, so that the tested genuineness of your faith, more precious than gold that perishes through it is tested by fire, may be found to result in praise and glory and honor at the revelation of Jesus Christ. So these various trials, grieving, and actually, I don't know, fear. I would say fear is right up there with this too. What do you do with that? And I think if we are healthy in how we are dealing with our fear, running to the Lord, leaning on Him with our whole hearts, that is a way for Him to actually build up our faith, right?
Yep.
And then we can encourage other people as well. There's a process of sanctification in all of this, right?
There is. And can I just say that when we're able to put our full faith in God and make Him the purpose of our life and say, it's not me, it's you. I'm following you. Then we can be open about our vulnerabilities and our own fears, because that's what allows us to relate to other people who's going through a difficult time. Because when it's one thing when you say I'm a broken person, I have brokenness in my life, but when you say I'm a broken person who's hopeful because I have Christ, because I put my emphasis on the right thing, and because that I'm moving forward, that inspires people. When you walk in there and you got a little bit of brokenness to share and you can relate, listen, you'll take advice and comfort and help from someone who you kind of feel like has been in your shoes.
Sure.
And, if you just walk in like a robot and just start, spouting things at them, they're like, get out,
Right.
but when you can say, guess what? I have, in many cases, some of the same fears, some of the same concerns, some of the same brokenness, but I'm hopeful and I'm optimistic and I'm excited and God is using me. That's when people go, wait a second. You're at least as messed up as I am, and you are thriving. Tell me more about this Jesus. And I think that when you go through life on the posture of I need Christ, that moves you forward, as opposed to just when you're trying to do it on your own merit. Eventually there's just going to be a fall. There just will be.
When I'm assessing fear within my own life and trying to overcome it, I look at the worst case. I mean, what is the worst thing that could happen here? Even if I'm killed, I'm going to be with Jesus. I mean, that's the worst thing that can happen on this planet. You know,
Right.
I mean, and granted, there's kids to worry about and things like that. Others, the people that we love, you know, that's you have to handle that in a different way. But you know, it's not so bad.
Right.
Well, that eternal perspective, I think that's another cause of fear, right? And why we are called to trust in the Lord with all our heart and not lean on our own understanding. I think that's a great point. We are so busy, consumed with the things of earth,
Right.
this temporal place,
Right.
and it's important. Don't get me wrong. There's a purpose for everything. There's a reason why God has kept us here, right? But the truth of the matter remains. This is gone, right?
Right.
This life is gone, and we have all of eternity to look forward to. And if we're fearing even for our own lives, we are not understanding what God has ready for us, that Christ has prepared a place for us. There will be a place with no more tears and no more things to cause us fear, because we are always going to be casting our eyes on Jesus.
Yeah, and you mentioned the sanctification. We should have less and less to eventually no fear. I mean, we have no fear of death already because of Christ's work on the cross. We should be stepping forward to fearlessness.
That's right. Well, again, you know, our justification, that means our salvation, you know, releases us from the power of sin. Sanctification releases us from, wait a second.
Oh.
Which one is that? The penalty. The penalty. So from justification releases us from the penalty of sin. Sanctification from the power of sin means we don't have to live in sin. And then eventually the presence of sin. We will not have to be in the presence of sin. And that's something to look forward to.
That fear is very much often sin.
Yeah.
Because we're not trusting in God like we should.
When you look at what are most people afraid of? And it's really fun.
Unknown.
It's really funny because outside of our physical health or our physical well-being or maybe our relationships, losing a relationship, you know, most of it is I'm going to lose this thing. I'm going to lose something. I'm going to lose some kind of prestige.
My precious.
Right? I'm going to lose. And again, when you really stop, that's really the difference between a God worldview and a man worldview. In a man world, I lost all this, you know, all these things. But when you look at it from a God, I lost some stuff. I lost, you know, and you know, there's moments in our lives. I think if you live any length of time, there are ups and downs. There are starting over points. There's times that you build up, and there's times that it's like Ecclesiastes. I mean, it comes and goes. And if you're this morning, you might be sitting there on a mountaintop, and you're afraid to lose what you got. You know, and that's funny about you know, when you live in a prosperous nation like America, you can spend so much time being afraid of losing the things that you already have. Like, you know, you would think that wouldn't be a thing, but like, you know, you can be afraid on the mountaintop, and you can be afraid in the valley where you're kind of starting over and you're saying, man, I had it all, or I've never had it all, and I always wanted to have it all. And really, when you boil down to a God worldview, it's like we're bickering over little things, little created
When
things.
Christ said, "Give it all away and come follow me."
Right.
Right.
Well, and then we go back to, I mean, I get the things part, but, you know, our nation is just angry right now, and we are fearful of losing. I mean, we just talked about California, and they're like, hey, don't sing in your church. What? I mean, and that's a liberty. I mean, a lot of us are concerned about losing our liberties. And that is a serious thing. And if you look at the riots that were going on, all these people had invested their entire lives into their businesses, completely destroyed in just one evening. And that's a valid fear. Okay, so the fears that maybe you're dealing with, maybe your health is not good, or a health of a loved one, and you're just like, the unknown is terrifying.
It is.
We need to stop. And believers, Christians, I think we, of all people, need to remind ourselves that even in the midst of all this, God has a purpose for all of it. He's allowing things to happen, and we don't see the big picture.
Right.
But we trust that He's good. We trust that He loves us. We trust that even in the things that are happening right now, that it looks bad, but God can turn this all for good according to His purposes.
Right.
And we fail to remember that. And I think we need to be practicing that gospel.
We do.
And we need to remind ourselves of all of this and trusting that, this doesn't look good, but I know my God is good and something is going to happen.
So when you're a kid, you read a book and like you get invested in the characters, right?
Yeah.
You ever remember this? And so
I do that as an adult.
I mean, and so I remember being assigned a book in English class, and we were all kind of concerned about how it was going to. So we just like all went to the end and read the ending, and then so we go, oh, okay, good. Oh, okay, good. And I can now when you're reading all the terrible stuff, all the lead up, all the thing, you're like, oh, okay, it's going to work out okay in the end. But like, and that's kind of how it is when you have a God worldview. It's like you've read the last chapter and you kind of go, okay, I can enjoy all of the turmoil and all of the plot devices because I know my favorite character is going to make it. But when you have not read the end and you're just reacting every single day on, and the unknown is what scares us.
Yeah, it does.
And there's just a lot of people right now living in the unknown. And it takes a lot of trust and it takes a lot of courage to face that. And you have to keep your eyes on Christ. Psalm 27 is one of my favorite for this kind of thing, because you seek the Lord in times of fear. That's when you're afraid, what do?
I eat chocolate.
Well, there's that. But like most times, like we freak out, we kind of have a pity part, whatever. But again, you have to remember to seek God in those times of fear. Don't run from Him, run to Him. And the Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? When the wicked advance against me to devour me, it is the enemy. It is my enemies and foes who will stumble and fail. Though an army besiege me, my heart will not fear. Though the war break out against me, even then I will be confident. What does it take to be that kind? Again, that's what I love about David and his writings is that, this is a man who experienced all of the ups and downs that we would ever hope to have, the adversities, the danger, and he's so raw. And again, as I was saying earlier, because he loved the Lord so much, he was a man after God's own heart. So therefore, he can lay himself bare in the Psalms, and we relate to that. But we also know that he believed in, his life belonged to something greater than himself. And so that with that, we can find solace and say, I feel that way too. Because in our weaker moments, we have to turn to Scripture and we have to lean on God.
And that's a good thing what you just said there, because when we are fearful, we tend, like you said, to run away, and we need to run to God. And my next question was going to say, how? How do I run to God? Maybe you are a new believer, or maybe you're just hearing this stuff for the first time. You're new to Key Radio, and you're like, man, you guys are crazy.
Well, that's true.
You're not wrong. But I guess the question then remains, how do I run to God? And I think you kind of mentioned one way of doing it. Can you elaborate on that a little more?
Well, obviously, so you can search Scriptures, but also prayer. I mean, and I think that's what's funny is through my life, seeing a bunch of people come to faith, there's always those first prayers are so beautiful, where they're just like, they don't have a concept of they're just start talking to God, and at first but then as we grow in our maturity, and as we grow in our faith, and as we grow in our knowledge of Scripture, how amazing it is to watch those prayers become so much more personal, so much more powerful, so much more. And again, because the first ones are like, help me, help me, help me, help me, and then it gets to be like, oh, maybe, and then while you're helping me, could you help this other person too? And then, you know what? Could you maybe help my community? And God, our nation could use some work, and things in the Middle East look kind of weird. And what happens is through that relationship that you build in your prayer life, in those quiet times, and again, learning Scripture and learning the context, did you see what happened there? This person first goes overwhelmed about themselves, and then somewhere in that prayer life, oh wait, I'm going to expand. I'm going to pray for my friend. I'm going to pray for my family. I'm going to pray for my community. I'm going to pray for my nation, my world. And God expands your capacity through this, where you're no longer, again, if you're praying for your world and you're praying for the fear is diminishing, and the trust is going up, the fear is going down, and you're facing your world in a different way than it was before. And it's because you put your faith where it's supposed to go.
Oh, yeah. And what you're also doing is you're recognizing that God is sovereign.
Yes.
And this is good too, because so many of us will approach prayer thinking there's some sort of weird formula. Like even believers, will say, okay, and if you have, there's an ACTS, where you, and then you go through the acronym of ACTS, and I'm not even going to share it with you, because the point on all of this is what you hit is that it's relationship.
It is.
And so we go before the Lord, but that means that we need to, if we're in a situation where we're fearful, and again, by the world's standards, you're totally justified to be fearful in so many circumstances. It's what you do with that fear. And it should cause us to do a course correction. And our course correction needs to be driving us to Jesus, to drive us to the throne of God. And by doing that, by doing that, though, we need to make the attempt to do it and to distance ourselves from that, from the fear, because otherwise it's going to consume us. And that's a discipline that we all need to have. Right. So I guess the first thing to do is, you're in a situation, my friend, stop, distance yourself, go to the Lord and trust in him. I
think it's good to have good theology with this too. You mentioned God is sovereign. Yeah. Yes. We have an all-knowing God who is sovereign, who is love, and has made promises in his word. And so, like John 3:16, we can go to those, and fear should not be part of the Christian's life. It should not be. It is in our weakness. But when we're strong, we're connected with God, and that fear's not there. But it's that walk.
I'm so glad you said what you said just now about God is love. Because I think if, for example, if someone's out here listening today and they're afraid of God, maybe they just feel like they have just messed up beyond any possible reconciliation with God, and they're afraid of God. Like, that they associate the church with fear. They associate God with fear. They, wrath with fear. But to know that, no, not only is this sovereign God in control, he loves you. He wants to forgive you. Grace awaits for you if you will come to him and humble yourself and trust him. And in so doing, he not only removes that fear of himself, you gain that God perspective on the world, that maybe not only did you, because when you're afraid, let me tell you, if you're afraid of God, you're afraid of everything. But if you, and again, the fear of the Lord is a respect. Obviously, we all respect the Lord for who he is. But when you realize that he loves you, then it creates that comfort of just saying, I just bearing all and saying, God, here I am. Fix me, help me, use me. And then you see the beautiful transformation as someone who goes from a very hopeless person to a very hopeful person, and someone that God uses powerfully in their life.
Okay, this is going to sound weird, but so what we're doing then is we are trusting the Lord, right? Like what this proverb is saying, trust in the Lord with all our hearts and lean not on our own understanding. And so we have to, that what we're doing is we're acknowledging that God he's in control of it all, right? And he is trustworthy. We're going to put our faith in him. When we have fear, we're going to go to him. And it's kind of like we don't know what he's doing. We have to be okay with the fact that we don't understand what God is doing. It reminds me, you're going to laugh, it reminds me of Karate Kid. Okay, I don't necessarily, but we're doing Ralph Macchio. I just remember this, where he's getting so mad because Mr. Miyagi, he's making him paint the fence
wax
the cars, and he's like, I've had it up to here with all of this, and and it's kind of like sometimes you feel that way, right? It's like, Lord, I'm just painting fences and waxing cars, but we're being prepared too. First off, that preparation is running to the Lord. He is our light. He is our salvation, right? That's what we are reading here again in Psalm 27. The Lord is my light and my salvation. He is the stronghold of my life. Whom shall I be afraid? It's the same thing. When the time comes, all this waxing and painting and stuff, we'll understand it. Right now, we don't understand what God is doing. And you look at the world, they say, Lord, if you're sovereign, why are there riots? Why are babies being killed in the womb? Why are all these things happening? And it's really frustrating because you see it and it's wrong and you feel like you're just helpless. But God is in control. We have to trust him. And the walk of faith, it's not an easy one.
That's right.
But I don't know what else to do because God has saved me. So if he saved me and I'm trusting him with my salvation, I have to trust him in this world.
Well, it says, God will make things right. There will come a time when sin will be this will be over. And on our timeline, we get frustrated because sometimes our timeline is not God's timeline. That's when you have to understand the order of the relationship. I think a lot of kind of like the Karate Kid reference where it's just like, Daniel did not understand the relationship.
Right.
We sometimes fail to realize, to understand the relationship because we want it on our timeline. We want it on our ethic and our own personal thing. But when we really, we tune into God's, work and his timeline, we go, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And it's time again, when we fit our puzzle piece into the right spot, life just goes a lot smoother, and we just feel, we just face the world in a lot different way than we would otherwise. But we have to it takes discipline, and that's why we have, prayer, quiet times, whatever. You have to continually align yourself so that you don't get twisted off into your own thing. What I like about the breakdown of Psalm 27 is it talks about coming to the Lord with fear and focusing, and then you get to like 7 and 12. It says when the fear returns, and then it says, and then continue seeking.
Yeah.
And it's not like you're going to go and God's going to just fix you, make a few adjustments, and you're not going to fear anymore. It's like, okay, go to the Lord, good, and then he does his thing, and it's good. But then also, and then when the fear returns, go back. And when you go back, also continue to seek God, and again, and understands this isn't a check box that you check the box and you're done. This is a continual relationship. This is a continual process for you to live a life again with the confidence of knowing that God is in control and that He can do amazing things through you.
Yeah. And it's not about you.
No,
right.
That's right.
If God should choose to put
There
us
it is.
through something that even ends with us dying, if it brings glory to Him,
Right.
it brings glory to Him.
That's right.
And it's about Him and His purposes and His glory.
Right.
It's not about us. And that's hard.
It's
yeah.
hard.
It is hard. And I'm just going to say there's entire, okay, I'm not going to get into that, but I'm just going to say that you're going to see the people that understand that, the people who understand the relationship. It's not about me, that God is not Santa Claus. He's not he's not here to do, he's not a genie. He's not here to just to give me everything I want. But when, because those wants change. Mm-hmm. So now they give, if God gave you everything you want, you'd probably 5 minutes later want something else. And so that would be an endless cycle of you trying to, placate yourself. But when you understand that God's in control and I serve Him and my life serves Him, you gain that intimacy with God and that purpose in your life.
And it ties into our conversation last week. We are dead. Mm-hmm. We died with Christ.
Right.
We're His possession. He's purchased us.
Right.
We belong to Him. What He wants to do with us, that's up to Him.
Mm-hmm.
That's
and
right.
even if we don't understand it.
And so we shouldn't fear.
Right.
We shouldn't fear or worry. And we're not good at this.
Right.
I can worry.
Yeah, you're good at it.
But I'm just talking about this is the ideal. This is how we should view it and correct our wrong thinking with right thinking. That hey, we've died.
Mm-hmm.
I like to go the one step beyond when it says I don't understand. I can't understand.
Right.
I'm not God.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have to trust Him.
Well, and this isn't a blind faith either, what
That's
we're
right.
talking about. And maybe you're listening saying, okay, I don't understand it, and so you're just telling me to trust in God, but, that's just blind faith, and that's goofy. God has repeatedly shown His power to us throughout human history.
Right.
Okay? You look at the Word of God.
Right.
It's written for us so that we can look back and go, wow, and how all of these events have changed and molded our lives today. Okay? We can learn from people in the past because honestly, the human condition has not changed. Okay?
Nope.
There's nothing new under the sun. And you can, if you really look at your own life, you will say, wow, that was a coincidence, was it? That thing turned out, and it was a God incident, okay? God is in control, even in your own life. You have to open your eyes to it. And when you see what He's done in the past, you can look forward and saying, I don't understand what's going on, but because God was so righteous, so loving, and so wonderful here, I'm going to trust that he's going to be the same God here.
Right.
And that's the reason why we need to pour into Scripture, why we need to encourage each other and go to a local church. And that's why we go to him constantly on our knees before the throne of God above and say, Lord, change me from the inside out. Oh, we're going to have
Powerful.
a great conversation because we're just getting started. It's going to be all week long going through Proverbs 3:5-12. My friend, read it today. Start memorizing it. You are going to be blessed and you're going to be prepared for more conversation. Okay.
Yes. Who was the last king of Israel? Hoshea.
Okay.
2 Kings 17:4.
And nobody answered that question. That one's too hard.
I'll get an easier one tomorrow.
No one wanted to be wrong.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. Oh, man. Angela, I just want to say thank you. She says, we have already died and raised again in him.
There we go.
Though we will physically die. Yes. That is, we can't say it better. We can't say it better.
Can't say it better.
Wow. Lose yourself. Let's talk about that real quick.
It's my blog, loseyourself.life, based upon, if you lose yourself, you'll find it. And I think that, thank you for having me on today.
Oh, you are a blessing. Thank you so much for leading our conversation. This is great. LoseYourself.live. You're listening to Mike and Heather in the morning. Don't go away. Great programming all day long on Key Radio.
This has been Mike and Heather in the Morning, a production of Key Radio, located in beautiful Provo, Utah. For more information about the program and the ministries of Key Radio, check out our website, keyradio.org. On behalf of Mike, Heather, and the entire Key Radio staff, have a blessed and glorious day.